Have you seen a self-driving car? It's amazing that a vehicle can drive itself without a human driver. This technology is called autonomous vehicles. Did you know that we have an autonomous nervous system? This is a nervous system embedded in our body from the brain to the tip of our toes, and it's autonomous. So today, I'll explain to you how this autonomic nervous system is involved in pain. This is a nervous system embedded in our body from the brain to the tip of our toes, and it's autonomous. This means that it works by itself. It does not depend on our consciousness. We do have a bit of control over this autonomous system, but not too much. It does things by itself, and sometimes it even embarrasses us. For example, a boy that sees a cute girl and blushes, turning red like a Christmas light. He cannot control that reaction. If he feels an emotion towards that girl, and that emotion is expressed via the autonomic nervous system. Another example, you are watching a movie with friends and start crying. You try to hide your tears, but it's impossible. Then everyone looks at you and say, "Are you crying?" This is another involuntary reaction of our mysterious autonomic nervous system. Some people are good at hiding their emotions. They are able to block their autonomic nervous system very well, but even them might have bodily reactions that they can't explain. Here are other examples of what the autonomic nervous system does. Have you heard of butterflies in your stomach? Yes, that's also the autonomic nervous system causing some gastrointestinal turbulence because you are feeling anxious or fearful. How about those urgent urination? It seems very inappropriate to go pee every 5 minutes. And when you go, there are only a few drops. But you can't control. You feel a sense of urgency and you have to go. Well, I could give you hundreds of examples of body activities that are an expression of your autonomous nervous system acting out. But what about pain? Can some of these expressions include pain? Yes, they certainly can, and I'll give you real examples. These are examples of real people with real pain, but these pains were caused by a feeling, an emotion, a thought, and the autonomic nervous system created pain sensations. Kate, she accepted a new job. This was her first job after graduating from college. She was supposed to start on Monday morning, but on Sunday night, she had a terrible headache. She doesn't usually have headaches, so she had to call and miss the first day of the job. She was so embarrassed and angry. There was nothing wrong with her head. 2 days later, she was perfectly fine and attended her job on Wednesday. Her autonomic nervous system was responding to stress, worry, and fear, and released a bunch of neurotransmitters that made her head burst in pain. Paul. He was told he had to do a presentation to a group of 100 people. He had never spoken to such a large group of people before, but he accepted the challenge and was happy for the opportunity. He was well prepared, his presentation was pristine. A few hours before the presentation, he felt a sharp stomach pain, but he realized it could be fear. So he took it easy, did some breathing exercises and relaxed. 5 minutes before the presentation, his heart was beating very fast. His hands were sweating. His face was turning hot and red. He noticed tremors in his hands. The tip of his fingers were pale and tingling. He thought he would throw up and faint. He took a few deep breaths, asked for a glass of water, spoke to a colleague who calmed him down, and he was able to deliver this presentation successfully. In both cases, the pain was an expression of an emotion, and they were mediated by the autonomic nervous system. There was nothing wrong with Kate's head or Paul's heart. Kate doesn't need a neurologist to examine her head, and Paul doesn't need a cardiologist to check why his heart was beating so fast. Kate and Paul knew that those symptoms were spontaneous reactions to a strong, stressful situation. So the autonomic nervous system is capable of creating pain? Yes, absolutely. Because pain is one of the languages that the autonomic nervous system uses to speak to our brain. It is like if the brain is the king. the autonomic nervous system is kind of autonomous employees that do things on their own, but they are under the king's orders, the brain. So when the autonomic nervous system needs to communicate something to the king, the employees create symptoms in the body. Now, the interesting thing is that the autonomic nervous system is divided into 3 different departments. Let's call them the sentinels, the entertainers, and the restaurant staff. The sentinels' function is to go around to detect danger. They need to be ready to attack and defend. The entertainers' function is to organize parties, have fun, and repair what is broken. As you can see here, these 2 departments have opposite functions. The castle cannot fight an enemy at the same time as the entertainers are throwing a party. Now the 3rd department is the restaurant staff. Everyone needs to eat. So this department is always active during war times or party times. How does this work in our body? Before I continue, let me remind you that this video is not intended to provide medical advice. It is for educational purposes only. And if you think you have a problem with stress, worry, fear, or anxiety, please talk to your doctor. If there is an emergency, please go to the nearest emergency department or call an ambulance. The sentinel is the sympathetic nervous system. It dilates the pupil to see the threat more clearly. It accelerates the heart in case the person needs to run or jump quickly. It opens the airways so the oxygen can get faster to the blood. It increases secretion of insulin by the pancreas so the glucose can enter in the muscles. These are just some examples of what the sympathetic nervous system does. On the other hand, the entertainment employee is the parasympathetic nervous system. It does opposite actions. For example, it activates the salivary glands so the person can enjoy a good meal. It slows the heartbeats so the person can relax. It causes erection and helps the bowels and bladder to empty their content. The 3rd group of employees, the cooks, is the equivalent to the enteric autonomic nervous system, the part that helps our body to digest food. So what is the connection between pain and the autonomic nervous system? In acute pain situations like a bone fracture, an inflamed tooth, an appendicitis, the sympathetic nervous system would detect danger and sound the alarm. But after the injury has been treated, the parasympathetic nervous system needs to be activated so the body can rest and heal. In chronic pain, the sympathetic nervous system is dysregulated. It can be blunted or hyperactive. Because the person is in a state of persistent or ongoing pain, the sympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system may become hypervigilant. Some people with chronic pain notice that they have difficulty to digest food, they feel nauseated, dizzy, and their hands sweat a lot. Insomnia and poor sleep can be linked to a hyperactive sympathetic system. There is even a chronic pain condition called complex regional pain syndrome type 1 that for many years had another name, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. That name implied that this type of pain was maintained by a hyperactive sympathetic nervous system. If you are a doctor and you want to learn more about complex regional pain syndrome, I have a handout for you that I explain the difference between neuropathic and nociplastic pain. You may download this handout for free. Just follow the link on the description of this video. There is another link between autonomic nervous system and chronic pain, and it's because the parasympathetic nervous system is not active enough to counteract the sympathetic one. The parasympathetic nervous system is kind of dormant and it needs some stimulation. As I mentioned before, they balance each other. If one is active, the other has to go down. So the easiest way to reduce the activity of the sympathetic system is to stimulate the parasympathetic system. And how do you do that? Here are some suggestions to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your autonomous nervous system that helps with rest and healing. Activation of the vagus nerve. There is a long nerve from the brain to the chest, abdomen and pelvis. It's called vagus nerve. We have two, the right and the left. These nerves carries information from the brain to the organs, but also from the organs to the brain. So any activity that uses the vagus nerve will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And as a consequence, it will decrease the sympathetic one. Breathing exercises are a way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Relaxation exercises, meditation, mindfulness practice, or any activity that will relax the mind and body, like mindfully eating a meal, going for a walk, reading a book, or taking a shower. I prepared some videos with guided meditation, mindfulness, progressive muscle relaxation, box breathing, and many more exercises to reduce stress, worry, fear, and anxiety. They are in the course area of my YouTube channel. The videos do not have any advertisements, so the person can practice these activities without interruption. Here's the link to the course area. So in summary, our autonomic nervous system exists to protect us, to control body functions that are essential for our survival. But in case of chronic pain, anxiety, and sleep problems, the autonomic nervous system may be dysfunctional. But there are things that you can do to regulate your nervous system. Take charge and start today. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications button so you can be alerted when I post new videos here. Thank you for watching. Bye!